Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the recent statements we've seen from the PTI leadership, the various leaders talking as far as the PAC chairmanship is concerned. What is his stance, as far as the former Prime Minister Imran Khan Sahib is concerned, his nomination, and there's of course certain speculation with regard to that. We'll be talking about the overall ramifications of this development as far as the political party itself is concerned, of course in the absence of his own leadership on ground as he continues to be incarcerated, and of course we'll be talking about the ramifications of this as far as the political party itself is concerned, as far as their stance on various issues is concerned, their own leadership is concerned, their varying leaderships and their statements are concerned. We've also of course seen the CM KPK in his statements with regard to the government overall, and of course that itself as far as reconciliation is concerned, and those that continue to defy any assertions or any attempts at a kind of reconciliation or a working relationship that should ideally be there between the government and the opposition. We'll also a little later on be talking about the economy and of course overall the effects as far as the stock exchange is concerned, as far as of course the looming IMF agreement is concerned. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Daniyal Sheikh, who's a political analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Wajih Abbasi, who's a senior analyst, a writer, also a lawyer. Thank you so much for being with us today. Daniyal, we've all seen the statements that have come from the various leaderships of the PTI at this time. We've seen the statement that's come from, of course, Umar Ayub. We've also seen as far as Marwat Saab is concerned, as far as other leadership, as far as Lateef Khosa is concerned. What is your take on the varying statements that are coming from the PTI leadership?
Earlier, Sher Abdul Marad was very confident about that he will be nominated as the chairman for PEC, but later on it was found out that Imran Khan intends to bring Hamid Raza forward as his candidate for the chairmanship. So this basically is enough to tell us that there are not just two factions, many factions within PTI, whereas Umar Ayub himself was one of the contenders. So there's an utter confusion amongst them as to who should be the chairman.
The confusion, do you think it translates into, I'm going to include Wajih Saab in this also, you think that the confusion also permeates into other areas of issues, like for example how to take things forward in terms of reconciliation, in terms of a working relationship with the government, all of those things also? You think that the stance is different? Because we've seen that earlier on perhaps there are those that advocate for a milder approach, that there are those that also say that there should be perhaps a more aggressive style of opposition within the party.
If you go by the record, I mean PTI as a party, it thinks that it grows with confrontation, not with reconciliation. Because whenever they took their approach since 2013 or 2011 has been that they think that when they take on the government, they take on the other parties, other institutions and other people, then they grow up among their popularity grows up. Like just take the example of 2011, 2021. You had by-elections in several, more than a dozen constituencies all over the Pakistan, and most of those constituencies, almost all of those constituencies were lost by PTI. But when after 9th April 2022, when Imran Khan's government was removed through a constitutional move of vote of no confidence, then he took on the other parties and the establishment and all that.
You're saying that that approach has historically, in the view of some of the leadership of PTI, been beneficial?
Yes, Yeah.
Let me go to Hassan Ayub. He's a senior journalist, and can you hear me, Hassan?
Yes, I can. I can hear you loud and clear.
Hassan, there is, you know, as far as this at this time, of course, as far as PTI as a political party is concerned, at this juncture in time, for them to have a unified voice, you know, within the parliament, even as an opposition, is essential for any, you know, any long-term or even short-term benefit to the party, no?
Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, the situation is exactly opposite. I mean, at the moment, if you see the differences among the second-tier leadership of PTI is so visible. I mean, if we talk about the filling the slot of chairman Public Account Committee, I mean, the Sheikh Abdul Marwat, he was nominated by the founder chairman of PTI. But many within party, I mean, they are making efforts to change this decision of chairman PTI, and they are somehow in a recent past, they have been successful doing so. So, I mean, at the moment, for the PTI being uniform, to bring out the uniform policy or to have a one stance is very important. But unfortunately, the situation is entirely opposite.
But do you think these attempts, you know, why is there disagreement on Marwat Saab leading the party, in your opinion?
Sorry, I missed your question. Can you say it again?
Why is there disagreement on Marwat Saab leading the party? As you said, you know, there is disagreement there. Why, in your opinion?
I mean, there is a jealousy factor within the PTI because in absence of a top leadership, including the founding chairman of Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan, I mean, everyone wants to get to be more prominent within party, and they are trying to acquire the more power. But Sheikh Abdul Marwat, he's been the face of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in the recent past, and he is a crowd puller. So many within party, even on a legal side, on their the lawyers within the party, the active lawyers, they are fearing his presence. And on the other side, the politicians, even the Punjabi politicians, they fear his presence. Because even in Punjab, if they have a public gathering, I mean, the local party is demanding for Sheikh Abdul Marwat, and he is filling the gap of the founding chairman PTI. So that's how they fear him, and they do not want to see him acquiring the post of a chairman PSC, who would be a watchdog on a government.
So you think, as far as the government is concerned, they might have, you know, his name might not necessarily get that kind of support there also?
No, it's. I mean, obviously, the Speaker National Assembly had given its clearance because the fake news was flooded by PTI inner circles that government is opposing the Sheikh Abdul Marwat name as chairman PSC. But later, the Speaker Ayaz Sadiq, he had to issue these clarification regarding this issue, and they said there is nothing as such. It's not true. So, I mean, the problem is that many fears, and you know, if we talk about Umar Ayub, the leader of the opposition, so he had to step forward, and he had to clarify that the appointment of his name was nominated by the founding chairman, so we might as well stick to his name.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you for joining us. Daniyal, do you think we've also seen statements come from the former Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab against the establishment now recently? There's a renewed the attacks again. Do you think that again there's a change in because you know earlier on there was a general hope that there would perhaps be a thawing there, or perhaps a middle of the road kind of approach to politics as a whole, and that doesn't seem to be the state of affairs at this point.
Before answering this question, like what Wajih Saab said, the fundamental agenda of PTI, but I won't even call it an agenda, or what should I say? But the fundamental agenda is that to create, to play to the galleries, create anarchy, and so that there is a law and order situation in the country and there is nuisance. And whosoever is a barrier in that agenda, that could be the state, that could be the institutions protecting the state, they're going to fall victim to Imran Khan's hatred. Secondly, as far as the contradiction was concerned, just look at the, on one side they say that this election was rigged and this parliament does not have the people's mandate, and on the other side they're fighting to get a post inside the parliament. And as far as confrontation is concerned,
but do you think that's also because they have realized now that there is, staying out has not really worked for them? Earlier on we saw what happened as far as the former Chief Minister Parvez Elahi and his, it was reported widely that he was of the opinion that perhaps there should not be the resignations from the Punjab Assembly, and we saw what happened. So staying out of the system perhaps necessarily did not bode well for the PTI as a party.
Basically, like what I said there about their agenda, it's to bring down the system.
Okay.
And like if you heard the Chief Minister's press conference yesterday, and he was saying that very soon we're going to besiege the capital. Now this is a man responsible for law and order. He's the chief executive of a province, and he's saying I'm going to gather people in my province and then I'm going to attack the federal government. So basically their agenda...
So there's a change, right?
There is no change. It's the same agenda, which is to bring about anarchy. If we win, everything's good, the system's good. If Imran Khan's prime minister, everything makes sense. If it's not, the election is rigged. So like I said, their fundamental ideology is they're power hungry, they're greedy, and for that they're going to play to the galleries. As Baisab said, there is no morality, there is no ethics. So saying that they change their code of conduct, that happens if you have some ideology. They have no ideology. It's just an agenda, and the agenda is to bring one person into power. And like Ayub Sahab was saying, Hassan Ayub was saying, this issue is not just within the second tier leadership, it's also with Imran Khan.
No, but isn't it trickling down? Like I said, I'm going to include Wajih also, because he's also making a lot of inflammatory statements again. Isn't that true?
Even right after the election, like you're talking about trickling down, right after the election, almost every losing candidate tried to besiege the RO offices, and they all failed miserably. So as far as his confrontation with the army is concerned, it's inevitable, because whenever he's going to break the constitutional barriers, the institutions which are responsible for upholding the law and the constitution, they will have to come into force against him. So basically his war is not with the political party, it's with the system, it's with the state. So, and even when he was in power, the situation was exactly the same. He was attacking the state institutions, he was lying to the people, he was promising them, remember that oil issue, he's like, we found an oil reservoir in the Arabian Sea, nothing came out. So the agenda is the same. It's just to come into power and somehow stay into the power, and like Baisab said, it's to mislead the masses, it's to play to the galleries and to create anarchy in this country so that the economic growth can be stopped.
Wajih Sahab, as far as anarchy is concerned, when the statement we are also looking at, like, economically speaking, we are looking at the IMF agreement very soon. I'm going to talk about economy a little later on, but overall, as far as the country being on the right footing is concerned, when these kind of inflammatory statements come, they invariably also have an economic cost to them. Do you think that the opposition is, of course, for a while they haven't been cognizant of it, but do you think that this is perhaps they're building up for that kind of, they want to take that kind of benefit, they want to create that kind of upheaval?
Actually, when we are talking about reconciliation and that sort of things, and we are banking on PTI, so we are actually ignoring what the PTI has been doing for at least for last 2 years, even before that in 2015 or 14 and all that. Their agenda, their only agenda is to, as Daniyal Sheikh said, that is to get to the government, to become the government themselves, to install Imran Khan as the Prime Minister. So that is their agenda, and for that they can go to any extent. They have done that. Last year also, when there was this talk with IMF was going on, and they...
So you think it's that timing, that's why this is happening again?
Yeah, that's what there's happening again. And you know, when the PTI was in government, even at that time, Imran Khan never spoke to the opposition. Whenever there were negotiations with the opposition, Imran Khan delegated a team, and that team talked to the opposition. And most of the times, the agreements between the government, the other parties and PTI were vetoed by Imran Khan at the end. So even if they hold talks today and there is some sort of agreement between Umar Ayub Khan and other members in the National Assembly with the ruling parties, then you never know that Imran Khan at the end vetoes that. So you are not sure. And you know, the situation in the country.
But he's not on ground, so of course there's not that advantage.
He's leading the party. He's leading the party, and he's the party. Nobody, you know, in PTI, it's the Imran Khan who matters. Nobody else matters.
Okay.
So it will be his decision in the end. But no, it's nobody else's decision. He will decide whatever will be the decision, will be Imran Khan's decision. So whatever the other party leaders say in the National Assembly or whatever they were doing, at the end it will be Imran Khan's decision, and that will take effect. So that I don't think that to the reconciliation between the government and the opposition, that matters. And one thing actually, you know, the whole democratic struggle in this country has been launched by the political parties, by PPP and the PMLN and other parties, and it is these parties which I mean, we are talking about this Public Accounts Committee. You know, Public Accounts Committee's chairmanship to the opposition party is not written in the law, it is not written in the rules of the National Assembly. It's just an agreement between PPP and PMLN that will be called the Charter of Democracy, which was later on was followed by other parties also. PTI.
So there's no, you're saying legally, there's no provision.
No,
or
there's no provision. There is
okay.
no provision. It's just a gentleman's agreement between PPP and PMLN that the chairmanship of the Public Accounts Committee will go to the opposition.
Okay.
So that was done in 2006, and when they came to power in 2008, they gave it to PMLQ. Initially, and then when PMLN went into the opposition, they gave it to the PMLN. PTI has never joined. I mean, PTI is among the very few notable parties in this country which has not joined the Charter of Democracy. So when they came to power, you remember into 2018, they initially were not giving this Charter of Democracy, I mean, the chairmanship of Public Accounts Committee to the opposition.
Okay.
Then there was boycott by the opposition parties, and then there was hue and cry, and then they gave it to the opposition. So they, as a matter of principle, they were not giving it to the opposition. Okay. You remember that. So that is what the PTI is all about. So they all these things. I mean, even these chairmanships of division of chairmanships of the standing committees were in 90s and even during Musharraf's times, they were not distributed among parties. This is also because of a gentleman's agreement between political parties. So all these things you have to do it by reconciliation, by negotiations with other parties. But the PTI unfortunately believes in negotiations with establishment, whatever they call it, establishment. So they don't believe in
But they're saying, so is it you know, them playing hardball? What is it when they are, you know, making these inflammatory statements against the establishment? So
they are trying to put them under pressure. So that is.
You agree, Daniyal?
Before that, now, as far as Shahrukh or his nomination is concerned, so as Hassan Ayub was saying, that him basically being a parachuter, he has no, he hasn't been PTI for a long time. And secondly, as far as so that's one of the issue. The pressure came within the political party. But secondly, as far as Abbasi just told us, this is basically, my understanding is it's the speaker's prerogative. So the speaker has to make sure the person is at least of a serious nature. So now a person who's, and he's supposed to make sure that all the public money is being spent, and he has to keep check on it. And he's basically responsible for accountability. Now, a person who's having difficulty following the very basic rules of the National Assembly is obviously not capable of upholding such an important responsibility. So this name would have definitely been rejected by the Speaker. As you know, recently he was, Shahrukh Sahi was found smoking in the hall of the Assembly, which is a clear violation of both morality and the code of conduct of the National Assembly. So considering that, I don't think he in any sort was a reasonable option. And while discussing options, there's another name, Noor Alam Khan from JUI. He too, especially because he has the experience, he's been chairman of the Public Accounts Committee before, and he's much more politically mature to run this office. So he too is one of the contenders, and in my opinion, he would be a much better choice compared to one of the hooligans that PTI is going to bring forward.
But the question is, as far as the party's leadership is concerned, there is clear division there, right? It has been for a while in terms of which direction. There are those that within the party feel that, you know, perhaps a middle ground would be better.
Well, absolutely, but like you said, it's the trickle down effect. So when the leader is famous for his U-turns and changing his statements and changing his way of politics over and over again, so you'll see the same thing trickling down. Like I told you earlier, like almost every single candidate of his tried doing the exact same thing, and every single candidate failed, which was besieging the RO offices and attacking the RO offices, attacking the offices of the deputy commissioners, thinking that something's going to come out of this.
But do you think what, you know, as far as Wajih Saab is saying, he's saying that this is about bringing the establishment, you know, making statements like this is probably just, you know, is it a play for that kind of attention? What is it?
That part I agree with, but to explain it further, like the famous saying, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So basically, yes, they are trying to blackmail the state. I won't say one institution. Almost every institution working under the Constitution which is responsible for law and order, does come in their firing zone often. But by now they should realize that's one thing that is not possible. It's not such a weak state that you bring a few thousand people on the road and you can get your agenda implemented.
But isn't it true that there's also disagreement within PTI and JUIF as far as the appointment is concerned?
Oh, of course, 100%. Not just the appointment, a lot of other things as well. As far as the JUI chief is concerned, you will definitely see a lot more reasoning in his way of politics compared to PTI, and a lot more ethics. For PTI, as you know, there's a consensus on this. It's nothing more than playing to the galleries and, you know, somehow
but it's also what Wajih Saab was saying, na, that it's about what they believe is the cornerstone of their popularity, which they think is this kind of agitation, which they think is this kind of constant, you know, criticism, which is highlighted by this kind of aggression.
Well, there is a segment of society that has some sort of an appreciation for this, but they definitely do not represent the masses, because despite all our issues, most Pakistanis do believe in following the constitution, and most of the Pakistanis are law-abiding citizens. So this this ideology does not represent the masses, but Imran Khan wants to show.
But Wajih Saab, they may not represent the masses, but they are a considerable part of you know, the opposition. They do represent a considerable chunk.
Of course.
And they do have, you know, for the government knows that the PTI right now in the parliament is a reality.
Yes, of course, because they have 90 seats, and it's the 1/3 of the National Assembly. They have the same ratio. They have the popularity among the people. So their people have voted for them, like the people have voted for the other parties also. PTI doesn't, I mean, sometimes they make people believe that nobody has voted for other parties, but people have voted for other parties also. They have voted for PTI. So PTI has a, has a following in this country, and they have a responsibility. When you have following, when you have responsibility.
But but the question is, they have a following.
Yes.
But I think you've hit the nail on the head. They don't necessarily have the responsibility. Isn't that true? I mean, the statements are not necessarily responsible that come always out.
Because, you know, but I said initially, because, you know, their popularity or their whole politics since 2011, when Imran Khan, that's PTI got set up that shoot up. Their politics has been
centered
based
around that aggression.
Yes, this has been centered around aggression. They're not accepting the mandates of other political parties. Like 2013, you to take on the elections of 2013, when PTI won KP, of course, but they were not the majority party in KP. They won a few seats in Punjab, but they said that their mandate has been stolen. And they marched on to Islamabad and they held rallies, the Dharna air for 124
But isn't that a different
days.
kind of Pakistan that we were talking about then? Isn't that a different kind of audience that, now people are more, we saw what happened, the events of 9th May also. Overall, there is a growing realization that the path to prosperity, the path to advancement doesn't necessarily mean aggression and violence. No, Daniyal?
No, more than that, like the reason for him getting somewhat attention back then and not getting somewhat attention or public support on 9th May is that before 9th May or in his first long march, he wasn't in the federal government.
Okay.
But at 9th May, he was exposed to the people and the people saw his lies for 4 years. 4.5 years he was in power. So that is why he wasn't able to, like they say, you can fool some people sometime, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. But as far as your question is concerned and mandate is concerned and respecting their mandate is concerned, as a Democrat, which we all are and we believe in democracy, now if we be like the situation arising in KPK, or the warning that came from the chief executive yesterday is that he is going to attack and besiege the capital. Now, if I ask you this question,
that's what I'm saying. The responsibility of the statement itself, the responsibility that necessitates the politics and the mandate that necessitates the responsibility is not there. That's
exactly.
What I'm saying.
But above him, like he can be irresponsible. Agree, that's his choice. But as far as it's about civil liberties. I can move my hand around, but the moment my hand is touching somebody, then that's a problem. So similarly, they can say whatever they want, but if they assemble in a place which is causing a nuisance to the masses, now at that situation, the state has to follow the constitutional barriers. Like if you remember when he was attacking the Prime Minister, trying to attack the Parliament in 2013. So at that time, there was a police officer, and he said, "Sir, I'm just a servant of the state, protecting the constitutional boundaries. So what's my fault? Why are you attacking me? If you're in power, I'll obey your orders." So for him to not understand this basic fundamental principle is enough to tell you that like you asked about the establishment earlier, he can never reconcile with the establishment because the establishment is working under the constitution and they're under oath to obey the constitution. Now the constitution says, or basically their fundamental duty is to safeguard the constitution. Now if one of the federating unit attacks the federation, so at that point it becomes very difficult for those institutions which are responsible to stop any kind of a constitutional violation to not come into action.
Right.
Like I said earlier once in your program, the way the Ali Amin is acting, pretty soon the federal government will have no choice but to look into governance rules.
Right. I want to move on and talk about the economy. I want to move on and talk about the effects that we are likely to see as far as the upcoming IMF agreement is concerned, as far as our general outlook on economy is concerned. What kind of a shape can we expect? What does the government foresee in the next couple of months? I'm going to go to Usman Chohan, who's a senior economist. Thank you so much for being with us. Usman, can you hear me?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Usman, there's, as far as the economy at this time is concerned, by and large, we do see a stability emerging. We do see there being, a trend as far as the stock exchange is concerned, as far as overall a pickup, so to speak, as far as Pakistan is concerned. But for it to trickle down, for it to actually translate into a tangible for the common man, it's going to perhaps take time. Do you agree with that? Do you think what kind of a time frame are we expecting? What do you expect?
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's a very mature way to phrase it, that although we are seeing some very positive green shoots, it will always be a matter of long effort to see this translate into value for the people. Now, the green shoots in particular that you have highlighted are important. The bond markets are looking pretty good, and that means that it's easier for the state to raise capital, as well as the stock market hitting record highs. Now, it's always important to point out that these are not definitive barometers of a complex society. Stock market going up or down doesn't mean things are necessarily good or bad. We always have to take these things with a grain of salt, but it isn't bad to see it. It doesn't hurt either. And having such signs is certainly an indication. It's a leading indicator of wider stability, I believe.
But as far as wider stability is concerned, what do you expect as far as the IMF agreement is concerned? Is tax net and bringing, a lot of those that escape invariably the tax net is also something that is being talked about. So in that regard, what kind of a shape do you see, the next couple of months and the agreement with the IMF?
Yes, this is an important question to ask. So we're expecting board approval on the 29th. And that will mean that the last tranche of the existing program will come through. And insofar as adherence to that program went, there are some shortcomings worth noticing on the tax revenue collection side. But overall, it was proceeded to the satisfaction of the IMF. I think the caretaker government that was there previously should be very proud of the work they managed to do in such a short time. But now we're talking about a new program. We have made the formal request, I believe, and that the scope of that could be in the high single-digit billions, and that would be a long, drawn-out extended fund facility. So it's a multi-year thing, and in that context, our finance minister has been in Washington showing the important facets of that recovery plan. So that's serious business, and that will build upon the things that you have mentioned on tax collection, on energy prices, on the circular debt, on fiscal consolidation, and other important reforms that have to be taken. Now, many governments have come in the past, and they have promised similar things, and we always find that there are hindrances locally. And those hindrances, I hope that we as a society realize cannot keep going on indefinitely. As our population grows, as the demands on the environment and on our economic sectors increase, we have to be ready for serious business as well.
But as far as when we talk about serious business, we talk about, of course, in opposition, which is we have just earlier on also talking about in the studio, which is rather antagonistic, which is rather, it builds up on these issues, even when they are necessary for the country, even when these steps have to be taken, like you said, and we can't keep on evading them. It's probably and we have to see the larger interests of the country. How does the government then balance it?
I fully agree with you, and all parties need to be on board for the larger picture. Infighting, internecine warfare in the political realm is not going to help any society. And acrimonies, I think you will share this observation with me, acrimony is increasing around the world. Any political system out there seems to be very strained, and geopolitical conflicts seem to be erupting with unseen fury in our lifetimes. And this is a very scary time. So then in that global context, if we manage to steer clear and work hard on the serious business, I think we will stand out and see greater dividends as the next generation comes of age, which is to say that if in this tough global environment we keep our focus on what we need to do, we will all be better off, and all parties, all elements of the spectrum need to realize that their personal interest cannot supersede our collective national interest.
Usman, as far as, a slowing industrial base is concerned, like you said, we have seen a lot of good work that the caretaker government has done. Also, the Council of Common Interest also in that regard. But this base, when we talk about the industrial base, we talk about, also a restrictive foreign exchange market. These two factors need to be looked at, perhaps, even as we speak, and I'm sure that the government is doing that. How do we manage to work towards that, in your opinion?
This is an excellent point. Both of these factors that you have highlighted are strongly limiting to our economic potential. The slowdown in industrial output as well as the foreign exchange limitations. You will note that both of these are tied intrinsically to our central bank, to the State Bank of Pakistan's policies. Now, the hope was that they would start to cut interest rates for two reasons. One, They were hoping that global inflation would come down and that U.S. inflation in particular would be lower, and also that the inflation indicators here, because of a high base effect that we've been suffering for 2 years with high inflation, now the percentage changes would be lower. Unfortunately, neither of those have materialized and persuaded the central bank, our state bank, to lower the interest rate. First of all, U.S. inflation indicators have been much worse than we thought, and this is very scary even for the U.S. election, but it impacts all of us, including us here in Pakistan. And the second thing is that the inflation here is still in double digits, to say a plus 20%, right? So it isn't as low as we hoped. However, the central bank needs to think about the competing priorities. The competing priorities are monetary stability, which is to say that you have inflation come down, and they haven't done a particularly good job over the last 2 years at that because the inflation rate has been so high. And on the other hand, they need to look at growth. Our population continues to grow at 3%, but our economy is growing at less than 3% by any indication. And to stimulate that growth, you need a lower interest rate, and this is particularly true for manufacturing. But now I would point out one final thing on this. The nature of industrial production is also changing in the world. We're 1/4 of the way through the 21st century. And so if we are trying to catch up to old school industrial production, we're going backwards in time. And actually, the future of industrial production is going to involve different factors of production. So now is a good time, while there's all this noise and crisis out there, to think about how we want to structure our manufacturing sector, tie it into our service sector, and also get people off of the high employment but low value added of agriculture while having modern agricultural methods. And so what I'm saying is that we can really start to think about how the 21st century economy can look, and we can leapfrog into that. And now is a good time, rather than going back to 20th century industrial production, hoping that will be the cure.
You're saying, right, please stay with us. Usman, I'll come back to you. Daniyal, do you think that the government is focusing on these issues that Daniyal is talking about? For example, particularly innovation in agriculture. We saw that the PMLN, it was also part of their manifesto. And, of course, it's something that they have said that they traditionally want to focus on. And perhaps, now is the time for us to see that kind of focus, for us to see that kind of course, later to have that kind, the results also.
Just today, I saw a news in the news that the Chief Minister of Punjab has announced a scheme for the farmers. But so the answer to that is yes. And as Chohan Sahab was just telling us about the upcoming change, there's another thing that this government and even when they were in power in the past is basically they tried to tap into the geographical potential of Pakistan, and on that way, on that road, CPAC is something very important. And one of the things that the Imran Khan government completely ignored or actually backrolled was CPAC and Gwadar. And us being at the gateway of Central Asia, and we can very easily, if we bring our Gwadar into use and if CPAC becomes functional, so a lot of trade in this region can be done through Pakistan, and definitely we will get dividends. And as Mr. Chohan was just telling us about the economic limitations. This is one thing this is one ray of hope in coming, or for at least for us to get our fair share of prosperity if we become a trade route for the countries in this region. So this too, I believe, is the government's priority. And
of course CPEC, and of course the tangible results from our of course liaison as far as CPEC is concerned, our relationship with Saudi Arabia, China, all of that, and I think the government is very focused on that.
Absolutely. Also. And as far as the hurdles and reconciliation is concerned, one political party will definitely try to sabotage this, but and the other political party that's threatening of protest is JUI. But as far as JUI chief is concerned, I can tell you, when it's going to come to CPAC or other projects related to Pakistan, or when it's going to come to the actual growth of Pakistan, he's never ever going to sabotage it. Actually, he's one of the biggest advocates of CPAC. Right,
Wajih Sahab, your comments. Unfortunately, we're also running out of time.
I think one thing is that the worst is over, which we were facing in 2022 or early 2023. That's over. Our agricultural products like wheat, cotton and rice, and we have very good crops. And our balance of payment is improving. We had surplus account for last 3 months consecutively. Our projections for economic improvement are there. And then you see that this SIFC, one component of SIFC is to get corporate agriculture. So that probably will help, and I think some of the companies have already taken agricultural rent in some barren areas actually, and they will develop them. Then our agriculture will grow, and we may become basket for the regional countries.
And let's hope that that happens. Usman, can you hear me? Usman, there is, your comments as far as the direction is concerned, as far as economy is concerned. Again, I want to just ask you before we close, as far as inflation is concerned, do you expect there to be tangible results, that translate into a trickle-down effect as far as inflation is concerned? And what are the global trends there?
Thank you for this important question. I'm really, really worried about inflation overall, because I thought that the U.S. would start to ease up, but it hasn't. And I'm also very disturbed by the events happening in the Middle East. Of course, I know you are as well, this genocide and everything, as well as tit for tat happening in that region. This can affect global oil prices, and as you know, oil is a big portion of our imports. And at the same time, the IMF stipulations will pass on into our electricity bills and so on. So I am very, very worried, and I think the state bank needs to consider how to have meaningful change on inflation, because inflation is such a large cancer for any society, and you will see the effects of even 5% or 8% inflation in the U.S. damaging the U.S. The Democrats' prospect. So we suffer for 20% inflation plus. So I really hope that our society doesn't continue to suffer, and I wish this for the world also, that we need to foster a peace that can make our economic lives more sustainable. So it is a concern, and thank you for raising that.
Thank you so much for your very valuable input, Usman. Thank you for joining us. Daniyal Sheikh, thank you for your time. Wajih Abbasi, thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, we want there to be the common goal for all, as far as the government is concerned, is for there to be a sustainable solution as far as economy is concerned. And for there to be, and of course that road is long, but we are certainly on it at this time, with the government making efforts as far as trying to channelize all resources open to them, also as far as, resources, relationships like the Saudi Arabia, China overall, in terms of what it can mean for us and translate into tangible gain is concerned. With a view to that, we also want an opposition that plays its part. We want an opposition that is open to dialogue. We want an opposition that does not issue irresponsible statements, certainly not from the head of a province with regard to toppling down, and of course that itself will have its effects on an economy, a fragile economy. Let's hope that we can work towards that. Let's hope that we can move towards a more responsible kind of opposition also, and overall perhaps a working relationship there. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.